The alarms began as a sharp metallic scream that cut through the warship's command deck. Red lights flashed across the walls. Officers rushed from their stations. In the center of the medical chamber, the commander's cub lay on a hovering platform, small chest rising and falling in short, broken gasps. Commander Vrak stood frozen beside the bed. His claws trembled. His species was known across the galaxy as fearless warriors. They did not fear enemies. They did not fear death. But this was his cub. The child's breathing rattled like something trapped deep inside. A gray tint spread across his scaled skin. Medical drones scanned again and again, projecting glowing symbols into the air. Respiratory system unstable. The ship's AI announced. Neural stress levels critical. Apply regenerative gel, the chief medic ordered. The gel shimmered across the cub's chest. Nothing changed. Increased cellular stimulation. Energy pulsed through the small body. The cub cried weakly, then coughed harder. His breathing became worse. The medic's voice lowered. The infection does not respond to our treatments. Vrak's tail struck the floor in anger. Then find another solution. Silence followed. In the back of the chamber, near the maintenance console, a human stood very still. His name was Daniel Hayes. He wore simple gray work clothes. His job on the ship was small. He repaired air filters and food printers. No one paid much attention to him, but he had been watching. He stepped forward carefully, holding a plain metal cup. Steam rose from it in thin white lines. "I may be able to help," Daniel said. Several alien officers turned slowly toward him. "With what?" one of them asked. Daniel looked at the cub, then back at the commander. "It's tea." The bridge went quiet for half a second. Then laughter burst out. "Boiled leaf water?" An officer hissed. "This is not a human kitchen," another said. "This is a warship." Daniel did not react. His face stayed calm. It helps with breathing. It reduces inflammation. It soothes the throat. The medic's crest flared in irritation. "We use bioengineered medicine designed for star systems. You offer plant water." The cub suddenly coughed harder. His breathing became shallow. The medical display flashed red. Vrak's laughter stopped. Daniel took one small step closer. "Sir," he said quietly, looking at the commander, "your medicine is strong. But sometimes strong medicine attacks the body too much. Tea is gentle. It will not fight the infection directly. It will help his body fight." "You claim leaf water is stronger than our science," the medic demanded. "No," Daniel said. "I claim it helps the body remember how to heal." The cub's breathing stuttered again. A weak sound escaped his throat. Vrak looked at the display. The numbers were falling. "What are the risks?" he asked the medic. The medic hesitated. "It is primitive, unknown, but harmless." The commander's eyes moved to Daniel. "If this fails." Daniel nodded once. "I understand." The officers stepped aside, though many still watched with disbelief. Daniel moved slowly to the bedside. He set the cup down and pulled a small claw from his pocket. He dipped it into the warm liquid and gently pressed it near the cub's mouth. The steam rose around the small face. The cub twitched. Daniel spoke softly. "Easy. Just breathe." He lifted the cup carefully and allowed a few drops to touch the cub's tongue. The medic monitored the readings closely. Respiratory rate unstable. The AI said. The chamber felt tight. Even the officers stopped whispering. Daniel waited. He did not rush. He gave another small sip. The steam filled the air with a light herbal smell. For a long moment, nothing changed. An officer muttered, "This is foolish." Then, the cub's chest rose deeper. One breath, then another. The rattling sound grew softer. The medic leaned closer to the display. Stress levels decreasing. Vrak stepped forward quickly. "Repeat that." Neural stress decreasing. Airway tension lowering. The cub coughed once more, but this time it was weaker. After the cough, he inhaled slowly, fully. Daniel placed the cup down again. He did nothing dramatic. He simply stood there, watching. Another minute passed. The red warning lights dimmed to orange. "Inflammation markers dropping," the medic whispered. The cub's eyes fluttered open slightly. He looked confused, but no longer panicked. His breathing became steady, not perfect, but stable. The alarm stopped. Silence filled the chamber. No one laughed now. Vrack stared at his child's chest rising in slow rhythm. He looked at the medic. The medic gave a slow nod. Stable. Daniel picked up the cup again and placed it gently on the nearby console. Steam still rose from it. One of the officers finally spoke in a quiet voice. It was boiled leaf water. Daniel shook his head slightly. It was warmth, hydration, and time. Vrack stepped toward him. The commander was large and armored, built for battle. He looked down at the simple human maintenance worker. "You will remain near my cub," Vrack said. Daniel gave a small nod. "Yes, sir." The chamber remained silent. The officers exchanged uncertain glances. The most advanced warship in their fleet had failed. A metal cup had not. As Daniel stood beside the bed, the cub's breathing continued in slow, steady rhythm, and across the bridge, no one laughed anymore. The chamber was quiet when the cub opened his eyes. Soft blue lights glowed along the walls of the medical bay. The heavy tension from the night before had faded, but no one had truly relaxed. Commander Vrack had not left his child's side. Daniel stood near the corner, holding another small metal cup. The cub blinked slowly. His breathing was steady now. Not perfect, but calm. He looked at his father first. Then his eyes moved to Daniel. His small voice was rough, but clear. "Warm leaf drink." Vrack froze. The medic stepped forward quickly. "Cub, how do you feel?" The child ignored the question. He lifted one claw slightly and looked at Daniel. "More." Daniel gave a small smile. He walked closer and helped the cub sit up a little. Steam rose gently from the cup in his hands. Vrack watched every movement carefully. Daniel let the cub inhale the steam first. The child closed his eyes and breathed in deeply. There was no panic in his chest this time. No sharp cough. "Small sip," Daniel said softly. The cub obeyed. He drank, then rested back against the platform. His breathing remained smooth. The medic turned to the scanning display again. Symbols shifted across the air. Inflammation levels continued to decrease. The medic said slowly, "Neural stress markers stabilizing." Another scientist moved closer. "Cellular recovery rate has improved since the last cycle." "That is impossible," the first medic replied. No advanced treatment was applied. All eyes shifted toward the human. Daniel did not look proud. He did not look surprised. He simply placed the cup aside and adjusted the blanket around the cub. The scientists surrounded him soon after. "What chemical compound in this liquid caused a change?" one demanded. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "It's not just one thing." "Then list the compounds," another insisted. "It's leaves," Daniel said. "Dried plants. Heated in water." "That is not an answer." Daniel looked at them calmly. "Heat relaxes muscles. Warm steam opens airways. Water keeps the body hydrated. The plant has natural compounds that reduce swelling." The scientist typed quickly into floating displays. "But our medical gel contains stronger anti-inflammatory agents," one said. "Yes," Daniel replied. "Stronger is not always better." The chamber grew still again. Daniel continued in simple words. "Your species runs on high stress. Your bodies are always ready for danger. When the cub became sick, his body was already tense. Your treatments fought the infection, but they also shocked his system." The medic's crest lowered slightly. "Explain." "Tea is gentle," Daniel said. "It tells the body it is safe. Warmth lowers stress. When stress drops, the body heals better." "Safe?" one scientist repeated. "Yes," Daniel said. "Comfort." The word felt strange in the room. "Comfort is not medicine," the medic replied. Daniel looked at the cub, who was now resting peacefully. "For humans, it is." Commander Vrack studied the display again. The numbers did not lie. "My cub's survival rate last cycle was below 20%, the medic admitted. Now it rises above 80. No one laughed this time. The door to the medical bay slid open. Two officers stepped inside, speaking in low voices. They stopped when they saw the cub awake. "It is true," one whispered. Vrack turned toward them. "What is true?" "The lower decks speak of it," the officer said. "They say the human cured the cub with heated plant water." "It was not a cure," Daniel said quietly. "It helped him recover." The second officer looked at the cup. "Is there more?" Vrack's eyes narrowed. The officer straightened quickly. "For research purposes." The medic cleared his throat. "We will require a full analysis." Daniel nodded. "I can show you how to make it." The idea of a human teaching alien scientists something so simple felt strange to everyone in the room. But word traveled fast. By mid-cycle, the story had spread beyond the medical bay, through the mess halls, across the training decks, into the command bridge. The human had done what advanced biotech could not. Some dismissed it as luck. Others replayed the medical data again and again. That night, the cub slept peacefully for the first time since the illness began. Commander Vrack finally allowed himself to rest in a nearby chair. Daniel returned to his small maintenance station. He thought the matter was finished. The next morning, he was wrong. 3 senior officers stood outside his workstation. They looked uncomfortable. Daniel blinked at them. "Can I help you?" The tallest officer cleared his throat. "I am experiencing fatigue." The second officer coughed lightly. It sounded forced. "My breathing feels slightly restricted." The third officer held his chest dramatically. "Neural tension." Daniel stared at them. All 3 looked perfectly healthy. Behind them, several crew members pretended not to watch. Daniel folded his arms. "You want tea?" The officers remained silent for a moment. Then the tallest one nodded once. "Yes." "Medical did not assign you here," Daniel said. "No, you are not sick." The second officer shifted awkwardly, perhaps not severely. Daniel looked past them. Down the corridor, more officers stood waiting, trying to look casual. He let out a slow breath. "Fine," he said. "1 cup each." The 3 officers straightened, as if they had just won a battle. As Daniel turned toward the heating unit, whispers spread down the hall. And somewhere on the command deck, the fleet log recorded something unexpected. Multiple officers reporting mysterious fatigue, all requesting the human. By the next cycle, it was no longer 3 officers. It was 12, then 20. By mid-shift, the medical log showed something unusual. Minor respiratory irritation, light fatigue, neural tension, dry throat, dizziness. All low level, all non-critical, all requesting the human. Daniel stood inside a storage room that had quickly been renamed Thermal Infusion Station. Metal containers lined the walls. Steam filled the air in soft white clouds. He moved carefully between heating units, pouring water, measuring leaves, handing out cups. Elite soldiers stood in a neat line. Warriors who had survived asteroid sieges. Commanders who had led planetary invasions. Now they waited quietly for warm leaf drink. Most tried to look serious. Some coughed. Some rubbed their temples. One very large soldier dramatically cleared his throat every few seconds. Daniel handed him a cup. The soldier sniffed it cautiously. "For medical stability." "Of course," Daniel replied. Further down the corridor, perfectly healthy war captains began reporting dizziness. One captain requested immediate leave from tactical training due to unexpected neural strain. Medical scans showed nothing dangerous, but something interesting appeared. Stress markers were slightly elevated across the crew. Not illness, tension. The chief medic stared at the data floating before him. "This is not infection," he muttered. "No," a scientist replied quietly. "It is baseline instability." Meanwhile, docking alarms sounded. An entire cruiser had arrived without combat clearance. The message transmitted to the flagship was simple: requesting cultural medical consultation. Commander Vrack read it twice. "They are asking for the human," his officer said. Vrack looked toward the lower decks, where steam now escaped through ventilation panels. "Grant temporary access," he ordered. Within hours, soldiers from another vessel filled the corridors. They stood in disciplined lines, waiting patiently. No pushing, no complaints. The air smelled faintly of herbs. Daniel barely stopped moving. Boil water. Measure leaves. Pour. Hand cup. Repeat. He was not a doctor. He was not a scientist. He was a maintenance technician. Yet the most powerful war fleet in the sector now rotated shifts around his station. Medical teams began scanning those who drank the tea. Results appeared subtle at first. Cortisol equivalents decreasing, heart rhythm stabilizing, muscle tension reducing, aggression spikes lowering by small percentages. Statistical anomaly, one scientist said. Repeat the measurements, the medic replied. They did. The numbers stayed consistent. It became obvious. The symptoms were exaggerated. Many of the soldiers were not truly sick. They were faking, but not entirely. One young officer stepped forward and spoke honestly. My body feels lighter after drinking it. Another nodded. My thoughts slowed down. A third said quietly, I slept? The word felt strange. Their species was bred for war. From hatchling stage, they trained in combat drills. They learned tactics before language. They evolved under constant threat. Their nervous systems never fully powered down. Rest was short, controlled, functional. But this was different. After tea, their breathing deepened, shoulders lowered, voices softened, reactions slowed in a peaceful way. The scientists began discussing quietly among themselves. It induces parasympathetic activation, one said. It signals safety, another replied. Safety is a vulnerability, or a resource. Daniel overheard none of this. He was too busy refilling kettles. At one point, Commander Vrack entered the station. He watched as a hardened war captain held a cup with both claws, staring into the steam like it was something sacred. You trained for 10 years in elite combat, Vrack said to the captain. Yes, Commander. And you stand in line for boiled leaf water. The captain did not look ashamed. Yes, Commander. Vrack studied him carefully. You appear stable, Vrack observed. I feel stable, the captain replied. That answer carried weight. By late cycle, Daniel's hands were slightly red from steam. His eyes were tired. Yet he continued brewing. A small sign had appeared on the wall. Maximum 2 cups per cycle. Someone had written it in careful alien script. As the line slowly shortened, a new presence entered the corridor. The air changed immediately. Conversation stopped. Boots struck the metal floor in measured rhythm. Fleet Admiral Corvex stood at the entrance. He was taller than the others. His armor was darker, his eyes sharper, every movement controlled. Behind him stood 2 guards. The corridor cleared quickly. Daniel looked up from his kettle. The Admiral stepped forward. I am experiencing severe throat irritation, Corvex announced. No one believed it. His voice was steady, powerful, not strained at all. Silence filled the station. Daniel held the kettle still in his hands. The Admiral looked directly at him. I require immediate treatment. Steam rose between them, and every soldier in the corridor waited to see what the human would do next. The corridor slowly emptied after the Admiral received his cup. No one dared watch openly, but everyone listened. Fleet Admiral Corvex did not drink immediately. He studied the steam rising from the metal cup in his claws. Then he looked at Daniel. Walk with me, the Admiral said. It was not a request. Daniel followed him to a private observation chamber overlooking the stars. The door sealed behind them. The noise of the ship faded. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The Admiral finally lifted the cup and inhaled the steam. His shoulders lowered slightly without him noticing. You understand what you have caused, Corvex said quietly. Daniel shook his head. I made tea. Corvex took a slow sip. He did not react, but his breathing changed. It became deeper. Our species, the Admiral began, staring out at space, evolved under constant predation. Daniel remained silent. On our home world, we were hunted from birth. Larger beasts, faster hunters. The weak did not survive. He paused. Our bodies adapted. Stress hormones remain active even at rest. Muscles stay tight. Mind stay alert. Always prepared. Daniel listened carefully. Corvex continued. Our civilization was built on this. Endurance became our highest value. The one who withstands pain is strong. The one who suppresses fear is superior. He tightened his grip on the cup slightly. Rest is seen as weakness. Comfort is indulgence. Even our hatchlings train in combat patterns before they're fully grown. Daniel thought of the cub breathing softly in the medical bay. The cub's body was already under strain before illness, Daniel said gently. Yes, Corvex replied, and our treatments increased that strain. He looked down into the cup again. This drink, he said, does something we do not. It slows things down, Daniel said. Corvex gave a small nod. Our medical teams have confirmed it. Neural stress patterns drop. Muscle tension decreases. Aggression spikes reduce. He turned toward Daniel fully now. You have introduced regulated nervous systems to a war species. Daniel blinked. It's just tea. No, Corvex said firmly. It is not. The Admiral walked toward the observation window. Stars drifted slowly past. For the first time in recorded fleet data, he continued, combat simulation response times decreased, but strategic clarity improved. Daniel frowned slightly. That's good, right? Corvex's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Yes, and that is what unsettles me. He took another slow sip. We believed strength came from constant readiness, from enduring pressure without relief. He paused. But your kind does something different. Daniel waited. You endure stress, Corvex said, but you also recover from it. The word hung in the air. Recover. Our scan shows something unusual in human biology, the Admiral continued. Your stress response activates quickly, but it also deactivates. Your bodies return to baseline. Daniel nodded. We rest. We sleep. We take breaks. We share meals. We drink tea. Corvex looked almost troubled. We do not return to baseline, he admitted. We remain elevated. Always. Silence filled the room again. Outside the window, distant stars shimmered like quiet lights. Corvex finally spoke in a lower voice. We thought humans were fragile, soft, easily distracted by comfort. Daniel gave a small smile. We like comfort. Yes, the Admiral said. And yet your species thrives, expands, innovates. He tightened his jaw slightly. You are strong not because you endure endless stress. Daniel tilted his head. You are strong because you know when to release it. The realization settled heavily in the room. Corvex took a final drink from the cup. His breathing was steady now, calm in a way that felt unfamiliar even to him. This changes our understanding of power, he said quietly. Daniel leaned against the wall. Power doesn't always mean pressure. The Admiral gave a short, thoughtful nod. Moments later, Corvex moved to the communication console. His claws hovered above the controls for a brief second. Then he activated Fleet Command Channel. His voice was steady and formal. Effective immediately, he announced. Submit fleet-wide request for formal thermal infusion instruction. He paused slightly. For all command personnel. Across the flagship, officers froze mid-step. Across dock cruisers, soldiers turned toward overhead speakers. In the medical bay, the chief medic slowly lowered his data tablet. Daniel stood quietly beside the Admiral. The transmission ended. Corvex turned to him once more. You will teach, the Admiral said. Daniel exhaled softly. All of them? Yes. Outside the chamber, notification alerts began flashing across fleet systems. Formal tea instruction requested. Mandatory attendance for senior command. And for the first time in their long history, a war fleet prepared for something that was not battle. The fleet had not come to learn. It had come to intimidate. When their ships first entered Earth's orbit, they did so in perfect formation, weapons charged, engines glowing, a silent message sent across space. We are stronger. But weeks later, something very different filled the flagship. Steam. The lower decks no longer smelled of fuel and metal alone. A soft herbal scent drifted through corridors. What had once been a simple storage room was now officially labeled Thermal Infusion Chamber, authorized personnel only. Inside, heating units lined the walls. Shelves held containers of dried leaves sent from Earth under careful agreement. Small metal cups rested in neat rows. Officers entered in disciplined silence. Not for treatment, for consultation. They did not call it tea break. They called it strategic leave consultation. Schedules were adjusted. Rotations were planned around it. Senior command received priority access, though junior soldiers were quietly allowed attendance. Daniel stood at the center of it all, calmer than ever. He no longer worked alone. Commander Vrack's cub stood beside him on a small platform, carefully measuring leaves into containers. His breathing was strong now, his eyes bright. He took his task seriously. Not too much, Daniel reminded gently. The cub nodded. Balance. That word had become common aboard the fleet. Medical teams continued to monitor data. Combat aggression metrics decreased by measurable percentages. Reaction times remained sharp, but unnecessary escalation dropped. Simulation outcomes improved. Strategic patience increased. Internal disputes lessened. For the first time in fleet history, 0 altercations were recorded between elite units during joint drills. The chief medic reviewed the charts in disbelief. Baseline stress levels stabilizing across command personnel. He reported to Admiral Korvex. And combat efficiency? Korvex asked. Unaffected, possibly improved. The Admiral looked out at the stars once more. The fleet had arrived prepared for domination. Instead, negotiations with Earth moved forward. Human diplomats were invited aboard not as subjects, but as advisors. Cultural exchange programs were established. Earth botanists collaborated with alien scientists to understand plant compounds. Alien neurologists studied stress regulation in humans. In meeting chambers once reserved for tactical warfare briefings, discussions now included phrases like recovery cycles, mental regulation, adaptive calm. Commander Vrack watched his cub carefully during this new era. The child laughed more often, slept deeply, trained when appropriate, but rested without shame. Vrack himself attended every scheduled consultation. At first, he justified it as leadership observation. Later, he admitted privately that he preferred the quiet. One evening, he stood beside Daniel in the chamber. When we arrived at your world, Vrack said, we intended to test your defenses. Daniel poured 2 cups. And now, he asked. Vrack accepted the cup carefully. Now we test something else. He inhaled the steam slowly. Our strength was always endurance, the commander continued. We believed pressure forward superiority. Daniel handed a smaller cup to the cub, who watched them both. And now, Daniel repeated. Vrack looked at his child, then at the quiet room filled with soft light instead of alarms. Now we understand endurance without recovery leads to collapse. Across the fleet, thermal infusion chambers were built into every major vessel. Reports continue to show lower hostility spikes during long patrols. Diplomatic channels between species remain stable. Even other nearby civilizations began requesting information. What is this human practice? How does it reduce tension? Is it replicable? The answer was always simple. Warm water, leaves, time. But it was more than that. It was permission. Permission to lower one's guard without losing strength. Permission to breathe deeply without fear. The fleet that once came to demonstrate power now carried something unexpected back through space. Understanding. As the flagship slowly adjusted its orbit, Admiral Korvex transmitted a final report to the high command of the species. Assessment of humans. Physically moderate. Technologically competitive. Psychologically adaptive. Primary strategic insight. Humans maintain power not through constant pressure, but through controlled release. In the thermal chamber, Daniel watched the cub carefully pour water into a fresh cup. The child looked proud. Assistant, he said happily. Daniel smiled. Best one I have. Outside, the fleet engines hummed softly. No weapons charged. No threats issued. They had trained for war their entire lives. Humanity had mastered something greater, the art of balance. And sometimes, the most powerful weapon in the galaxy is a warm cup shared in peace.